Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show, brought to you this morning from lovely Erie, Pennsylvania. The Center for Popular Democracy Action, a collection of progressive community groups, is endorsing Mr. Sanders over Elizabeth Warren, dun dun dun, for the Democratic presidential nomination. This is significant for a number of reasons, but let's dive in here. This is by Asted W. Herndon. The Center for Popular Democracy Action, a coalition of more than 40 progressive community groups totaling about 600,000 members, will on Tuesday endorse Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont for the Democratic presidential nomination, signaling that Mr. Sanders' political standing among the party's left wing has rebounded or even risen in the months since he suffered a heart attack. So what we've got here is an opinion piece, and the opinion is that Bernie is recapturing the frontrunner status amongst progressives. I would posit that if you have ever supported Elizabeth Warren since she endorsed Hillary, not before then, but after then, if you've endorsed her, then you're not really a progressive. You're, let me just put it bluntly, you're a privileged, elitist, probably white, suburban Democrat, and I've said that before. But even so, we need to get this message out that you're going to lose if you're still backing Elizabeth Warren. At the time of the hospitalization in early October, Mr. Sanders was under intense political pressure. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, what a morning, Massachusetts had surged past him in polling and positioned herself as the progressive standard bearer in the race. I wouldn't say it that strongly, but what we had here was an endorsement from the Working Families Party, a key progressive group that had endorsed Sanders last time around. What I told you back when that happened, I didn't interpret it the way this writer does, which is that an endorsement from the Working Families Party would signal that Elizabeth had overtaken Bernie for progressive votes. What we know from watching Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty on the Hill is that the wine track voters, the privileged, suburban, mostly white Democrats, have chosen sometimes Elizabeth, sometimes Mayor Pete, sometimes Kamala Harris. They were just kind of jumping around and still are kind of jumping around. They're not what Megan Day of Jacobin magazine would call sticky support. They're not loyal. They're just shopping, and they're still shopping. And so the kind of support Bernie has had all along is sticky and won't leave him, even through the hardest of times. And so when Warren was endorsed by Working Families Party, that was a big deal. It wasn't something you should just poo-poo, but at the same time, we need to understand why that happened and what it actually meant. So if you go to this article that I wrote, What the DNC Does Not Want You to Find Out About Elizabeth Warren, I'll link to this. She secured an endorsement from the supposedly far-left Working Families Party after Demos, the think tank her daughter chairs, donated $45,000. And this article links to other articles, so you can read the Jacobin article about the fact that Working Families Party did not use the votes of their rank and file to determine this endorsement. The leadership, which operates like the leadership of my union and other unions, they're in bed with big money, and the big money that Warren's daughter provided is why Working Families Party endorsed Warren against the wishes of the rank and file. And this article goes on and tells you a lot of other things about Elizabeth Warren. But I put that one right at the top of the article because it could, if you didn't know what was going on, it could signal that Warren is the choice of true progressives, and that is anything but true. The article goes on, now their political fortunes have shifted. Mr. Sanders has risen in the polls, while Ms. Warren has plateaued, stymied by a barrage of political attacks. Well, No, she was stymied because of her horrible waffling on Medicare for all. And that's another thing you should know, that her daughter is in the health care industry. All these bad things about her that you need to know. Number 6, Elizabeth Warren's daughter is co-founder of Health Allies, now part of United Health Group. This helps explain the waffling on single-payer Medicare for all. Will Elizabeth Warren's daughter profit from her health care plan? Well, yeah. And so that's what that really means. Stymied by a barrage of political attacks, these political attacks are coming because she isn't a real progressive. And so then the Weintrack voters don't know which way to jump. Leaders for CPT Action, which includes liberal groups focusing on immigration, healthcare, housing, and other issues, said Mr. Sanders had seen a jolt of popularity within the organization in the past 2 months, surpassing Ms. Warren. This is the first time the group, founded in 2012, has endorsed in the presidential race. Jennifer Epps Addison, the group's co-executive director, called it a resurgence. What Bernie Sanders has built, it is not arguable, Ms. Epps Addison said. It's an exciting and different energy than we've seen in the Democratic base. And that's because, here's me opining, that's because Bernie Sanders is the real deal. He is going to energize and mobilize the labor force to effect true change. Back to the article. Mr. Sanders also nabbed the endorsement of the National Nurses United, the country's biggest nurses union, in November. The fight to become the party's progressive frontrunner is having significant effects on the battle for the Democratic nomination. Former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. continues to lead in polling with the support of non-white and working-class voters, the not Weintrack voters, while groups like CPD Action and the Working Families Party are seeking to entice these demographics into their progressive coalition. If they are successful, it may upend the primary. All right. So I agree with some of the opinions here. I agree with the facts, and then how to interpret them is a different matter. Now I'm jumping to yesterday's Bernie or Bust show, You Nauseate Me, Mayor Pete. And in the comments below that show, this comment is, should we even bother with Buttigieg? He's polling at 6%. Time to start focusing on how to take down Biden. Well, actually, that's what we're doing when we attack Buttigieg, because he's a placeholder. You've got the Weintrack voters on one side for Elizabeth, and then you've got the more working class voters on the other side with Pete. And in both cases, you've got people, for whatever reason, don't yet understand or trust Bernie Sanders. And so we need to narrow the field. We need to, attacking Pete almost is unnecessary. He attacks himself every day, so I haven't bothered with him much. But Mayor Pete and Elizabeth Warren are a different matter. So here's a comment. This is the real reason I wanted you to read these comments. This comment from MitchGo1 is, you're going to hear that a lot in supposed Bernie groups that are run by Hillary people. What they'll say is, don't tell us anything bad about the other Democrats, just tell us what's good about Bernie. And I've tackled that one in other shows. That's an insidious argument, because what it's saying is you can't tell the truth about why Bernie is better than the other candidates. If you can't say what is different by contrasting Bernie with the other candidates, then it's like hobbling you and then making you try to run a race. We can't hobble the Bernie supporters who want to tell the truth about Elizabeth Warren or Mayor Pete. Buttigieg is preserving votes that would otherwise go to Bernie if Biden were to drop out. Buttigieg is in the race to give white affluent voters another choice besides Bernie. Privilege seems to want to avoid grubby populism at all costs. What progressives need to do is to avoid corporate sock puppets at all costs. no matter who. If it's a corporate sock puppet, and that by all means, by any measure, if you're being fair, includes Elizabeth and Pete. And so we can have neither of them if you're a true progressive. And that's why we need to tell the truth about them. We have Cenk Uygur jumping in and being endorsed by Bernie. I'm going to talk about that separately. But here's an article that is relevant to what I'm talking about today. Presidential hopefuls are in the race because they're backed by the Clinton machine, all the flood of new presidential hopefuls. And there's a Wiki Podesta email that will show it. And the above article, there's an article by Robbie Jager that shows the Podesta email, and Nico House and Sofia Zalvidar in this clip, The Scary Truth Behind TYT Smears of Tulsi Gabbard, they jump into why the Hollywood connection is important to consider. Rather than jumping on Cenk right now, I'm going to talk about Michael Kives and Darnell Strom, talent agency execs, who are connected to a lot of these candidates that have been flooding the field. Kives, talent agent Kives, previously worked for both Clintons. He used his Hollywood connections as a tool to raise money for both Hillary and Bill. And so the Creative Artists Agency, the biggest talent agency in the world, donated almost $479,000 to candidates and PACs in 2018, including Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Beto O'Rourke. CAA also represents all of Joe Biden's interests. And so we've got Anderson Cooper, Alyssa Milano, Ana Navarro, Bette Midler, Bill Maher, Twitter co-founder Christopher Isaac, Biz Stone, Bob Schieffer, Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, on and on and on. All these powerful, above the line in terms of popularity and notoriety and fame, all of these people are represented by the same talent agency. And so they've come down predictably in favor of whoever Clinton might want at the moment. And really, the wine track candidates are the ones who jump around according to the whims of the talent agencies. And so that's why it's important, if you're looking at the endorsements of progressive groups, it's important to make sure that they're on the up and up, that they're representing, that they're endorsing for the right reasons. Unlike the Working Families Party that endorsed Elizabeth for the wrong reasons, it looks to me that we're getting some solid endorsements here for the right reasons. And the Center for Popular Democracy Action is a great example of that. And so that's a good news for the day. I hope that you share this news, because it's in the New York Times, but I don't know. I think that we can't make too much of news like this. I think we can't promote it enough. That's what I'm trying to say. But we need to get the word out that these things are happening. So share broadly, share this show, get on my comments section and tell Go Mitch that he's confused. Try to get the Bernie or Bust train song in front of all your favorite boomers, and keep on burning. Hope to see you tomorrow. Live, well, not live, fairly alive from Erie, Pennsylvania.
Get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back.